very much. What do you do? Oh, awesome. Yeah. We should check as far as like knowledge got. You don't. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah. So you might know these.
I have to go back. I think I got the net.
So your library. Okay.
Yeah, technically. Yeah, your comments were made. Once I was there since inception.
You're the one that makes it hard for me. I would have lost it.
We're all one unit. I was going to join you. Otherwise, there'll be a lot of noise. Okay, great. Test. Test. I don't think the mic's hot, but please join me in welcoming our next speaker, a friend Peter Haase from metaphacts. Please join me in welcoming Peter. Listen.
Welcome everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here to talk about the dimensions knowledge graph. I believe this presentation has been very well connected to the previous one in terms of problems that we want to solve, but also the methods that we're proposing. I think it's a very nice connection. Yeah, I'll go closer to the mic. Yeah. So my name is Peter Haase. I'm from metaphacts. Some of you might know metaphacts for the Metafactory platform. What you might not know yet is metaphacts has been part of the digital science group since last year. And one of the key assets that digital science has is a research database, a dimensions database, a large database of research outputs, applications, brands, clinical trials. What we have done over the past year is present that as a knowledge graph, integrated that with public knowledge sources, and I'm really excited to talk about that because it brings together much of what I have been also working on for the past two decades on the front of knowledge representation, knowledge graphs, data integration, but then also on the software side with the development of the Metafactory platform. Now bringing that together with really specific content with that dimensions database. That is very, very exciting to see. I'm happy to talk about that. So what is our ambition here? So our ambition is to provide access to that huge amount of research knowledge in a way that it really supports decision making and to provide actionable knowledge. That obviously starts out with the data that we're dealing with, and we're dealing with a very wide variety of data, different data modalities, largely text, scientific literature that is represented in text, but also structured data, but most importantly, very disconnected data. So what we're aiming to do here is to bring together, to integrate, connect that data, preserve the context, and then of course, we need to understand the meaning and the semantics. We want to represent knowledge explicitly, and we want to be able to generate new insights from that knowledge in order to help us in our decision. So therefore, we're here introducing the dimensions knowledge graph. So what is that? So it is a large knowledge graph of scientific research knowledge to enable AI-based decision making. So at its core, It's a large knowledge graph based on data from digital science, from the dimensions data set, but also various other data sources. It is described and connected using an explicitly defined flexible semantic layer in the form of ontologies and vocabularies. We're also here integrating a lot with public taxonomies and ontologies that allow us to connect with publicly available knowledge on the one hand, but it's also designed and created to connect with existing internal data that we face at our customers. So the data integration of publicly available knowledge with proprietary enterprise data. Of course, it's powered by AI in building and representing the knowledge graph, and is also really intended really as a trust and explainability layer for novel AI applications. So in essence, at a glance, there are three main pillars to this dimensional knowledge graph. So it's obviously on the one hand data, so data here, the scientific literature, the metadata, public data sources, all of that connected together. It is the AI technology that we're using in building that knowledge graph on the one hand, in representing it, but also the AI technologies that allow us to interface with that knowledge, derive new insights, generate new knowledge. The third pillar is how we deliver the data and intelligence to the end users through our knowledge graph platform, through Metafactory, for interacting with the data, but also to build targeted applications to support very specific use cases using our low-code platform. So these three pillars I want to talk about in the following, starting out with the data, and I'll start with a quick summary so you really get an impression of the scale and coverage of that dimensions knowledge graph. It is a very large graph, so at the core we have metadata about, here you see roughly 140 million publications, 160 million patents, scientific data sets, policy documents, clinical trials, etc. So we have that actual research output, but then obviously also metadata about who's behind that, people, organizations, 34 million researchers, 129,000 research organizations. So that is really the core graph. It already makes up roughly 33 billion RDF statements. But then obviously we also have the connections with the actual full text through semantic annotations. So we have full text 307 billion linked semantic annotations that really linked to the full text, so annotated entities, but also abstract relations and other kinds of annotations, for example, research integrity markers that provide information about reliability, trust, integrity of the data. So these annotations are done using very large domain-specific ontologies and vocabularies. So we currently have a very, very strong focus on the pharma domain. So we have that area very well covered with 30 million concepts and synonyms in currently 38 domains. Here on this slide, you just see a high-level overview of this semantic layer in the form of the ontology. This is just a very small subset, obviously, of the main entities that we're covering. You see, so this starts out with monetary grants, so what has been funded, what are the research outputs in terms of creative works, publications, reports, patents that are produced, medical studies, etc. So these are the main research output concepts that we see here with key relationships between these outputs. So that's pretty much on the metadata level. But then we also have that connection with really with domain-specific ontologies that really allow us also to describe the actual content of the research output. Right? And that is done through annotations. So you basically see the metadata side connected to annotations into domain-specific ontologies. Here, just some examples that shows concepts like genes, diseases, their relationships, transcripts, pathways, etc. So the domain-specific concepts that allow us to annotate the full text, but also allow us to connect to publicly available data sources. Yeah? So there's the tie-in with the full text, but also publicly available data sources. On that side of publicly available data sources, what we currently have already integrated, and that is done in also in partnership with our partner Ontotext, who are providing linked lab data inventory. So that is a set of data sources that we have already made available together with the dimensions knowledge graph. Again, you see here this is large in the life sciences domains where we have databases about diseases, proteins, genes, etc. So we have these interlinks with these publicly available data sources, and that allows us to support, in this case here, use cases really across the entire pharma and life sciences value chain. Obviously, with the focus on the research and discovery side, with use cases naturally on literature review, target identification, drug repurposing, etc. So on that front, but also then going further along the value chain through the preclinical development, manufacturing, clinical trials, etc., where then also that research knowledge is again relevant. So really use cases across that chain. And one of the use cases I will detail then also with the demo later. Before I go there, I wanted to get to the next area, that of how AI can support business decisions with machine-generated insight. And obviously, so at the core, what we have here is the knowledge graph with the state-of-the-art knowledge representation. So really explicitly represented knowledge as a foundation for symbolic reasoning. And for many use cases, that is also exactly what you need as a traditional knowledge representation reasoning, for example, use cases like regulatory intelligence. But then, of course, this knowledge graph can also be combined with generative AI, statistics-based inference, large language models to augment that knowledge. And here, that combination, so that hybrid neurosymbolic systems really can be a dream team together to derive new insights. So it's great what you can do with logic-based inference, but in the scientific discovery process, when it comes to making predictions, generating hypotheses, their generative approaches are really powerful. And here we really need the creative side of AI also for generating insights that are not yet known, that are not yet explored. Often this creativity is then labeled hallucination, rightfully, if it is unwanted. But here in the scientific discovery, I also see a lot of potential in that creativity in coming up with something new that it was not stated before, but where that really is desired. Then in turn, of course, you want to provide support for these predictions, for these hypotheses that we have stated. You want to provide explanations, grounding in facts, evidence in the explicitly represented knowledge, and therefore grounding that in the knowledge. So with the dimension knowledge graph, we really try to embrace that spectrum of AI methods. So starting out with the basic knowledge graph side, so the really explicit knowledge representation. There's a lot that you can already do there, just really on that graph level, and I can give some examples there with some use cases. So just with being able to integrate, represent everything as one connected graph, and then being able to query that in Spark through path queries, that is already a very powerful mechanism. So we have some use cases also with funding agencies who are then looking at, for example, what kind of impact have I generated with my grants. So then being able to connect all of that to queries, from grants to publications that have come out, to patents, to clinical trials, products that have been developed. Being able to query that as a graph is a very powerful mechanism. But also if you upfront don't know how things are connected, so things like pathfinding, finding connections, unknown connections between entities in the graph, very powerful. Then this entire area of graph analytics algorithms, so with graph clustering, centrality, all these algorithms can really also then help to understand these collaboration networks who are influential researchers, identify fraud in research, paper mills. A lot of powerful methods there. But then on top of that, we have all this field of generative AI to provide additional insights. And with on top here, I mean a number of things. I mean, on the one hand, really interfaces to the knowledge graph, with the capabilities of natural language understanding and search, being able to ask natural language queries over the explicitly stated knowledge, but also the knowledge understanding in in understanding the original text, the scientific publications, extracting facts and representing those explicitly, and then, of course, generating new insights out of that implicit knowledge. And as I said, we always have that connection and grounding in the knowledge graph to retain the trust and explainability. So this combination also is very powerful to create more interactive systems, new kinds of interaction dialogue between the human and the AI, to get from the more human-driven approaches, where interactions driven by search, to more interactive and automated systems. On that, so talk about the users and the interaction. In the end, the business value for these use cases is generated through the user experience. So it's one thing to have the data and the algorithms, but in the end, you need the users want to interact with the system for specific use cases, not just through generic search interfaces, but really interfaces that allow for very targeted visualization, exploration, analysis, that support specific workflows, that possibly also require curating and editing of data. And that's where our metaphacts platform comes into play for really the knowledge graph application development, where we have a platform to really build targeted apps and interfaces for interacting with the data, really provide great value for the actual. So wanted to talk about a bit about use cases, and again, I'm trying to stay here in this pharmaceutical industry domain and life science domain. So there, in the past, we have worked on several use cases with pharma companies over the years, where we see a lot of potential also for using the dimensions knowledge graph. Some of them listed here, but I wanted to focus on one, namely that of target discovery. The target discovery generally refers to the identification of specific biological structures, typically proteins or genes, that play a key role in a disease process. And once these targets are identified, they undergo validation to confirm the relevance for the disease, and to assess their druggability, as well as it's feasible to develop a drug that can effectively modulate the target's activity. And so this is obviously a very crucial step in the drug development process, and a key business decision which target to select for drug development, with a lot of cost associated, but also potential value associated downstream. So in that, for that use case of target discovery, so we want to look at specific questions that a researcher might ask in the process of generating hypotheses, and this is illustrated here with this diagram here, where we have a specific protein A here, that is under investigation, and first question is what diseases are known to have associations with that protein. Yes, that's a very simple question. But what we're then interested in is also, are there possibly additional diseases that are associated with that protein through interactions with other proteins? So we're also interested in interactions between proteins and other diseases that have an interaction with, that have an association with that protein, which might lead to an indirect association between that protein A and the disease. Right? So I want to find these potential association, and I want to provide obviously evidence for that in the form of scientific literature that provides details about that possible association. Okay, so this is a kind of problem that we can solve with the dimension knowledge graph. In this case, in this particular question, so we can basically integrating or be utilizing three data sources of the dimensions knowledge graph. Two public databases. One is the Open Targets database that has information about the protein disease associations. In addition, StringDB, that is a database that has information about protein-protein interactions, and we're utilizing the actual dimensions publications, so where we have the actual full text with the annotations. No? And I think I'm tempted to do this now to show this live in the system. So very quick live demo, hoping that the resolution has changed when I connect just here. But this is the basically the entry point to the dimensions knowledge graph with the the search interface that allows search across all these different entity types. But I didn't want to show you this generic interface, but really this targeted interface to support that specific use case on protein disease associations. So here I have a more target use case oriented interface that allows to, in the first instance, search for particular proteins. So I will just take one protein here, APP. That is a protein that is associated with known to be associated with Alzheimer's disease. So this is the one that I want to investigate. If I select this will get me to a page, templated page that aggregates the relevant data for that specific use case. In this case here, about the known protein interactions for APP. And you see here a list of interacting proteins together with evidence about these interactions. Yeah, so different kinds of evidences that I provide here. I'm not going to explain all these columns here, but this is data coming from StringDB on the one hand, but we also have for these interactions and references to the actual publications in the dimensions database that support that. Similarly, we have information about known associated diseases for APP. And obviously, so Alzheimer's disease I mentioned is one of them, but there are others. Again, with the corresponding evidences, this is coming from open targets. But the interesting point then is about these indirect associations. So these protein disease associations. So this is really now combining subgraphs from various sources. So what you see here in this table is the relationships on the one hand between this protein 1 and protein 2. So for example, here this protein under investigation APP with protein TTR here. And then we have information that this TTR is connected with a specific disease, like the one here. This is all known information, and I know what the evidence for that is. But the interesting question then is, so what about that indirect association between this APP and that indirectly associated disease? Yeah? That may be an association that is already known in the database, and this is what we have indicated here with this column here, whether this is something that is known or not. In some cases, this was not yet known, not yet published as an existing association. So this might be an interesting association and therefore target. And we can now look at, well, what do we have as supporting evidence for that? And if I click here, I will get to publications in the publications database that talk about exactly that chain of these proteins and the corresponding disease. Right? I'm not going into too much detail here now. Just wanted to, I will just pick one publication here, so I can then obviously also look at the corresponding. But maybe very briefly. So we see here in the abstract that the specific entities here have been identified. And this is really, he is here obviously not identified as an app on application, but it is really here as amyloid precursor. So there is an ontology behind that allows to do that this integration of these entities. But I wanted to quickly go to that corresponding PDF now, so I can now look at that document that talks about these entities in combination, and look at what is described here about these interactions and associations. But I could also ask them directly my AI assistant. So we have what also integrated here as an AI assistant that allows to ask questions over these publications. And I have prepared the question here. So if I ask here that question, what is the association between disease and I should get then an answer that describes exactly what this case. See this, okay, so this article actually describes a particular case of a patient that was initially a disease, then you see on the information of proteins that played a particular role. And then, yeah, exactly, yeah. And so for each of what has been extracted here, I get to reference where in that article that particular statement was. Okay, I think I need to speed up a bit. I will leave here and go back to the presentation. And yeah, I think I will slowly conclude with the summary and an outlook. So what have we seen? So we have seen here just now just one example use case, but that is representative for the kinds of problems that we're able to solve. So we have complex research questions that require to bring together a lot of data that belongs together, but it's not easily brought together and analyzed. So that's what we're providing with our solution. So we solve this with a ready-made knowledge graph, the dimension knowledge graph, which brings together the data in a knowledge graph, which brings together, which enhances that with AI methods and delivers that through a knowledge graph platform. A little bit about the future looking forward. So I had to include here one AI-generated image from the very end. This was intended to show the synergy of symbolic knowledge representation and generative methods. Analyze it. But yeah, to make that connection with the points that I wanted to make in the end. I think looking into the future, I think we have started with that. I think we are on a path where we should and can represent human knowledge with symbolic knowledge representation. We're doing that to a good extent already, but there's obviously a lot more potential. There's a huge potential for synergies between generative AI and person knowledge representation to achieve a deeper understanding that is hard to achieve with symbolic knowledge representation alone. And I also see a very bright future for new ways, new paradigms for interacting with knowledge that just goes beyond pure search, but where we really have interactive processes, interactive systems to support that process. And with that, I would like to conclude, and I think we have some time for questions.
So I had a real quick question. Since you're dealing with publications, I come from a published content background. How difficult or has it been to get agreement from the publishers to use their content with the AI? Because I mean, everything you see in the news with the Times and other things, it seems like publishers are getting more and more worried about their content going into the LLMs and never coming back out or coming back out in unperceived ways that they don't get credit for. So how did you handle that?
Yeah. So I can't. So we do have agreements with publishers. So the content is licensed. I can't go into the details about what exactly that looks like. And we may have people in the room who can talk about more about that. I'm on the more technical side.
I know you can't share details. I'm just asking how difficult it was.
I can't comment on how difficult that was or what.
Well, I mean, digital science was started primarily with Dimensions with these publisher agreements. We're a sister company to Springer Nature as part of the Holzbrink group. So digital science is a group of these portfolio technology companies. So we're the technology kind of company within the overall Holzbrink group, but we started the company through funders and then expanded to publications. And I always like to point out that PubMed has on average about 35 million publications, which is what most people go to in this space, but we've got 140 million and we've vet them pretty well for quality.
But they're not worried because, I mean, I'm assuming you're using, I mean, maybe this is a bad assumption and I know you can't tell me true one way or the other, but the LLM you're using is likely one of the ones that are out there on the market that you didn't develop your own unless you did. But that means that you're feeding that content. They're not worried about that. Like the Times article, like, you know, the problems with that, that's where I'm going with it, I guess.
I missed the article, but.
Oh, yeah, so Gen AI is getting sued by the Times
Oh, okay.
because they think they can definitively prove that their stuff was used. But now they didn't have copyright stuff, so you covered that, yay. Copyrights, please honor those. But they're also saying that because Gen AI is a black box, that nobody knows where their content goes, and you might have agreements, but people are worried about putting their content into them at all. Is kind of, maybe there's no answer. I'm just curious.
But
I think this gets into.
this is a closed system, right? I mean, we're not feeding any of this data from the publications back to the LLMs.
Yes, I mean, that's what I
Yeah,
was saying,
this
it's
is
into the
the-
AI portion of that, which I'm not as well
Yes.
versed on, but I know. Yeah, that gets into the AI portion that I don't know as much, but it's not, this is.
It doesn't go back to the LLMs, so this is a closed system of what you're seeing there.
So one question from me. I know the Mention product from before, and I'm super excited to see the knowledge graph now behind it. I just want to clarify, maybe it's a similar question from a different perspective. If, let's say, one academic institution wants to take full advantage of the Mention's knowledge graph, they would need to have licenses to the published content, right? In order to get access to through the Mentions to get to be able to get all that content, because you pull up what article that's Taylor and Francis, I'm gonna guess that's licensed content or whatever, right?
Access article that
Very good.
You're right. In order to get
Yeah.
access to the full text, you need to license
Yeah.
that separately.
Correct. I
as
don't
well.
have a problem with that because
However, you can still find those articles, so,
I was talking about the full text.
yeah, so, yeah, but you can still find it.
The access
you
to the
can
full
still
text.
find the metadata, but not the actual content of
Not
the
actually,
article.
yeah, you can read.
That's what I'm saying. The institutions would need to have a license, paid subscriptions to that content to be able to fully access all of the published literature. Unless we're talking in medical sciences, but most of the articles are already open access by some mandates from NIH or Europe PubMed Central. There is most of the medical literature is open access anyway. It's mandated. So maybe to Ashley, I am actually gonna go back to whatever she said. I think that the knowledge, the scholarly outputs belong to the public because they're mostly funded by public money. So I don't think we should be worried where that content is the publisher gonna sue us or not? Because that knowledge was generated by the public, with the public funds most of the time. So I wouldn't be, I don't care about that.
The universities might want to use some of that content for their own LLM experimentation.
Yes.
Which is, but can they? I don't know. These are.
They should be able to, they produce that
No
research.
answers.
You can search the full text, but you can search the full text that you may or may not have access depending on your institution's, you know, that's when you pull in your read queue for your document delivery.
Publishers shouldn't exist, in my opinion. That's a middleman.
We're probably at time for lunch, so just, you know, so everybody we can transition to that. I think there's a lot more discussion to be had on this subject. It's near and dear to my heart from rich context, so thank you very much, Peter.